What's up, everybody? It's Joey from Everything in Frame back here today to talk to you about one of my favorite movies of all time, The Shining. I'm gonna take a look at how writer-director Stanley Kubrick effectively uses suspense in his screenplay adaptation of Stephen King's novel, The Shining, to build tension throughout the film. So the first thing we're gonna look at is exposition. And Kubrick uses scenes of exposition, and if you don't know, exposition is kind of the intro scenes where you get to know the characters and the location and all the kind of settings and details of the story. So Kubrick uses exposition in The Shining not only to give us a backstory and tone for the film, but also to establish tension that will only build throughout the rest of the film. The Shining is like a crescendo in that we learn these few specific tidbits of information at the beginning about their past and, what the family is like, and then we watch those implications surface slowly throughout the rest of the film. The exposition is kind of the lighting of the fuse of the huge bomb climax that we get in this movie. Another thing that is accomplished through the exposition is setup and payoff. We see the cause implemented by one character, and then we see how it affects all the other characters later. Our learning of Jack's arguably abusive behavior in the past at the very beginning of the film builds suspense as we wait for those abusive tendencies to kind of surface and see what's going to happen. One specific scene that I noticed last time I watched was the car scene. And that's at the beginning. It's a short scene where we see the family together for the first time. And it takes place in a car, which is obviously a really small, kind of claustrophobic space. So it could be seen as a foreshadowing for the tension and claustrophobia that we'll feel vicariously through the other characters, especially Wendy and Jack. And it's also where Wendy first kind of states her concerns for moving and being in this place for so long, and Jack just quickly brushes them off, revealing that the power dynamic between the couple is already off to begin with, and seemingly is just going to keep getting worse. Another technique that Kubrick uses quite well in The Shining is isolation. The fact that a bulk of the shots in the film show each member of the family alone as they face their own experiences of the hotel and the situation, it creates a sense of isolation between each character. Jack slowly loses his mind while trying to focus on work. Wendy tries to take care of Danny and get anything out of Jack, and Danny just wanders around the hotel witnessing terrifying things. But each of these vignettes of the larger story create more and more layers to the suspense as we're working through the plot. Another thing I noticed a lot was suspense through details. So certain details like locations and objects can also build suspense. By planting something vague early on in the story, you can foreshadow that something might be connected to that detail, building a certain amount of tension around it. It can be frightening to the viewer to be aware of something and be unaware of its significance or level of danger or concern. A great example of how Kubrick uses that here is through Room 237. We hear Dick the chef warn Danny not to go into Room 237, and from that moment on, we wonder what could possibly be in there. This vague knowledge only makes the moments leading up to and within Room 237 even more suspenseful. Another example is how he tells Danny about The Shining. We see Danny experience this phenomenon throughout the film, so when we cut to Dick's room and see him experiencing The Shining for the first time that we see, we know something bad is probably gonna happen, and then it does. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen The Shining, but I'm sure you have. After that happens, that's when he goes to the hotel and gets killed by Jack. So, not many good things happening after this whole Shining experience. For an example of suspense through objects in the story, we can take the phone line. So Wendy calls the police line earlier in the film to make sure that it's working so that they can call in case of an emergency. This is paid off when we see Jack cutting the phone line, which we knew earlier is their only source of communication with the rest of the world. So kind of a short story on this one. I wanted to focus mostly on script-related things rather than like camera work and editing and stuff like that, because that's what I usually talk about. And I just watched The Shining recently and really noticed a lot of strong writing points and just want to talk about a few of them. So hope you enjoyed the video, and subscribe and stick around for the next one. Thank you.